Hey, hello. Oops, let me get my headphones
Hello.
on. Hello, yeah. Welcome. Hey, we're live now. I can send you the stream link if you'd like. Hey, thanks for coming on. So let me just see. Can everyone hear? Everyone in the chat. People here should be getting picked up. Yeah, okay. Everyone can hear. Cool. All right. So could you just like introduce yourself real quick? Who are you? What do you do? And yeah, all that.
Yeah, sure. My name is Dean, CEO of Kunta Content. We are a game developer based in Africa, specifically Kenya, and we make great African games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So let's see. What games are you working on right now, and what's like your current
we're
projects?
we're working on Hero. Hero is a Maasai action adventure game. So the Maasai are one of the legendary tribes of Africa,
Mm-hmm.
and we are telling a semi-modern story, a coming-of-age story of a young Maasai prince who is forced to protect not just his tribe, but also his culture and the wildlife around him from a gang of poachers.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And let's see. How did you get started with making games?
Ooh, wow. It started roughly 20 years plus ago, just from playing games. And what that became is really enjoyed playing games like Scarface, FIFA, Burnout Revenge, and so on. And then a bit later, getting into God of War, Last of Us, and more action adventure games.
Mm-hmm.
And it was almost always a North American or Western AAA studio. There were rarely any weird, interesting games, especially on console, from the
Mm-hmm.
rest of the world. So it planted a seed that eventually I wanted to make my own game when I was much younger.
Mm-hmm.
Then about 8 years ago, when I was a filmmaker, I was writing a lot of really interesting stories, and the idea for making Hero sort of blossomed out of that process,
Mm-hmm.
making this really gritty, interesting African story. And then finally in 2020, the opportunity came. I met some really talented developers, some really talented artists, and it
Mm-hmm.
was the perfect opportunity to dive deeper.
Cool. And let's see. Did you say Godot? You've been using Godot also?
Sorry?
One of the engines you're using. Did you say Godot also?
No, no, no. We use Unreal Engine and Unity
Oh,
for
okay.
different items.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so let's see. Wow, you started with film and stuff. That's really cool. And I don't know anyone who started with film and then went into game development. Um, so what is the like the game development scene where you are? And yeah, how big is it? When did it start? That kind of thing.
So there are barely any studios in Africa in general, let alone Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
I used to work for a studio, and part of my job was mapping the um, developer environment in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at last count, it was a rough estimate of about 200 developers who had actively released a game, and of course, just a slightly less number of studios. So this is on the whole continent, a continent of 1.2 billion people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the numbers are quite dire. I was extremely fortunate. We as a team were extremely fortunate to meet each other and get the opportunity to work on a game. It's an extremely rare occurrence in Africa where
Mm-hmm.
you get the opportunity to make a game. I think over the last 50 years, there have been less than 500 games released on the continent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then at the same time, there is huge opportunity. We've seen we've seen a lot of growth in other fields of entertainment from back when I was doing film, in movies, in music, in theater, in animation, and not so much in games, mostly due to the complication.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just the perfect time to make games that Africans want to play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, how'd you go like about putting together a studio? What was like, because it was just people that you met. Was there, I don't know, what was who decided in the first place? Like, let's make a game and let's start this.
Yeah, so it started with the idea from about 9 years back, and I reached out to a few of the developers I'd met and framed the idea, and not just the idea around making the game, but also the idea of running a successful game business, which
Mm-hmm.
are two very different things. It's
Yeah.
much easier to make a game. It's much more complicated to um, run a game studio and hopefully run it profitably.
Yeah.
So, uh, yeah,
And how do you run it properly? What's like the, I don't know, marketing and business plan side of things and funding?
yeah. So I think the first step is that you start off by knowing you will not make money for a while or do anything significant for a while, especially if you're laser focused on really high quality experiences on console and PC. So step one was figuring out a semi-sustainable way for the team to work on the project
Mm-hmm.
without crashing and burning X number of times.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one was having the team be part-time, focusing on the game, and part-time on their own solo project,
Mm-hmm.
so that the income and or money that we had didn't run out too fast. I think that's really key. And because so many fast games are the make or break titles, you want to be able to for it to be more make and less break, let me
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah, then the next step with that was just creating a pipeline of interested people. So we've met over, I believe, over 50 different publishers and studios who are interested in our game, or including investors who are interested in our game, who are interested in what you're doing, who are excited with the trailers that they see about our game, about what you're building, and would like to support that. Um, at certain steps. So maybe they'd like to see a prototype, they'd like to see some early users, they'd like to see numbers on a trailer, and so on and so forth. So
Mm-hmm.
building the business case for getting support or investment. So that's really key, especially early on, so that you determine what you're working on is fairly interesting. And then in PC and console games, you rarely get the chance to test as you do in mobile games.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we've been able to do, let me say, mini versions of that. Friends, people in the industry, and sometimes even strangers just reaching out and saying, so excited about what you guys are building. When can I get a chance to play or to test on your behalf, and so on. So we've
Mm-hmm.
been able to bring that together in a way that we are able to back up our assumptions about what the game should be, what's entertaining, what's not, and so on.
Mm-hmm. Right. Is there like I guess a lot of indie scenes have like meetups and stuff. Do you have like, I don't know, meetups with just soloists or hobbyists and stuff ever?
Yes. So in Africa, especially, it's usually game jams and or game events. So attending a few game jams, meeting other developers, meeting other studios. I think as a studio, we know almost everyone else on the continent who's
Mm-hmm.
doing anything significant. At least being on a first name basis, introduced to each other, had a few meetings, get to know each other, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yes, there is a meetup community. There's a hobbyist community. There's also a much more serious, quote unquote, corporate community. Few studios, but it still exists.
Mm-hmm. Let's see what. So you're working on this game now, which was your. What's kind of like your, I don't know, development process, like your the structure of the of this game. Your what's like the structure of like the company, like the management of, who's in charge, who manages design, who manages the artists, or is it all just kind of like a group of friends working on it?
Yeah, so we are a production team, quote unquote, of about four. One artist, one, well, two senior devs, myself just leading everything, which means that there's a little need for heavy project management, let me say. Um, and being nimble, it's really being lean and ability to build quickly and scale really quickly. So what that does is that I lead the design, creative, and just overall project management. And then the rest of the team has their own pockets of focus, let me say, that they are wholly responsible for. And what that does, I think it reduces a lot of bureaucracy. It reduces the need
Mm-hmm.
for long meetings and crazy complicated Trello and Jira processes, and just
Mm-hmm.
simplifies everything into you're doing X, you're doing Y, and these are our deadlines, these are our steps to those deadlines, and we are able to quote unquote keep each other in check in that
Mm-hmm.
if one person, one team member is unable to meet certain objectives, it's fairly clear where the challenge is, and we are all able to figure out a solution around it.
Mm-hmm. Do you work in
Yeah.
person, or do you have like just online kind of work? Everyone works from home.
So we are all in Nairobi, Kenya. So we do meet up roughly once a month. The rest of the time is online. We've all previously spent a lot of time working together in person. So shifting into remote wasn't too difficult because we're all familiar with each other, built interesting quote unquote friendships, interesting gaming habits. We've played so many games together. We've played board games, we've played football, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So shifting into remote was, I think, much easier for us than most other studios.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's like your tools for remote? Do you use Discord or Slack or?
We use Discord and WhatsApp.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Do you think, I don't know, is like the scene growing there? Are there people who are like actively trying to get more like game developers or more people into making games?
Yeah, I think the African scene is the most exciting scene globally.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say that is because there's so many new interesting studios coming up that can comfortably say they're the first of their kind. Unfortunately, I think what you get mostly out of the West is just a overall recycle of ideas, talent,
Mm-hmm.
and thought processes. Of course, it's been wildly profitable, so it's understandable that that happens. But at the same time, it's rare to get really unique, interesting takes on
Mm-hmm.
games from the rest of the world. Versus here, I think almost every studio I've met or I've seen their work is working on something fairly new globally.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one of the most exciting parts of being in a frontier type environment, in that no one is too worried about the um, pressures and or focus that more established developers have, and you're
Mm-hmm.
able to really trailblaze. And then, of course, there's the quote unquote play to earn blockchain scene that's growing as a corner of our
Mm-hmm.
industry. That's also doing some wildly unique things in
Mm-hmm.
comparison to everywhere else. So it's a really growing scene. It's very exciting times. I've been slightly active over the last about 5 years. It's never been this hot. It's never been this exciting,
Mm-hmm.
and we're already seeing quote unquote early winners. So studios that look super promising that are likely to be um, let me say, large studios, billion-dollar franchises in the next 5 to 10 years. We already see and are excited to work with some of those studios as we also chart our own path.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So let's see. You mentioned blockchain and stuff. I know a lot of Well, at least here in the West, it's like very controversial whether to like work with any kind of crypto or blockchain in games. But it doesn't sound like that. I don't know for you. What's like, I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can under it's there's still a bit of what's the word? There's still a bit of working around what exactly blockchain games do in Africa. But from a player standpoint, it makes so much sense. And we already have very strong player bases growing on the continent that are
Mm-hmm.
into those types of games. Versus, I
Mm-hmm.
think, especially for the West, um, it's the player bases that are revolting against blockchain games first. And then by extension, developers and just players in the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
There's, of course, a bit of blowback from actual studios, but something I find interesting is that the studios that are actually successful at doing Web 2 games are the ones seriously considering Web 3, versus the
Mm-hmm.
ones that are still struggling in Web 2 are actively fighting against Web 3.
Mm-hmm.
So in Africa, it's really a case of the best and the smartest and the most successful already see the opportunity, not just in money that you can raise,
Mm-hmm.
but also in ability to build a strong player base.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's an actual sense where it might be one of the ways the developing world builds their own IP. Because Web2 is so saturated with Western titles, multiplayer titles, really heavy corporatized games that are
Mm-hmm.
so difficult for the average indie studio to break into the player consciousness. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
so difficult to build let's say battle royale multiplayer that is
Mm-hmm.
going to compete on any level significantly with a PUBG or a Call of
Yeah.
Duty. However, in the blockchain world, you have a slightly better shot, let me say.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, so it creates this interesting psyche, I think, that in this new world, you actually have a shot. You
Mm-hmm.
might not still be able to do it, but you have a better shot than in Web 2.
That makes sense. Yeah. Let's see. Next. So
Can I
like,
ask you a few questions?
sure, yeah.
Yeah. Why Mizizis, why streaming, and why games?
What is Mrs.? So that's just from RuneScape. That was my RuneScape handle like 15 years ago, and then I just kept it when I was setting up my account since it was already my name. I was like, yeah, I'll just keep it. I don't know. It stands out. It's kind of weird. I probably would have done
Yeah,
something
yeah.
different if were to go back, since it's hard for people to like remember, but it does stand out. So I don't know.
And maybe to help you out, in Swahili, the word Mizizi
Uh huh.
means roots.
Means rude.
Roots. So
Root.
really deep roots of a tree that sink into the earth and hold a tree strongly to the
Oh.
ground. So yeah, so I saw that and I thought that's where you got it from. So it's curious that you just completely came up with it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've always noticed when I like search it up on YouTube, I'll get like Mizuzu. Yeah, I just hit the M key and the IZ keys a bunch because I didn't know how to type. So I didn't know it was an actual word. That's funny.
Yeah, not all of it, at least the first
Yeah.
eight characters. Yeah,
That's cool. What was your other? Did you say something else also?
yeah. Why streaming, gaming conversations, and then why gaming?
Why streaming and why making games?
Yeah,
So streaming is kind of like the newer. So I mean, I've done a lot of YouTube also. I don't know if you saw the things, but
yeah.
this is my YouTube channel, and then I also do TikTok, and so it's just kind of like the next area I want to build up, and it's kind of like I think there's a lot of potential for streaming game development on Twitch. I mean, it's still like smaller. Like, I mean, the biggest channels get a few hundred viewers as opposed to like just chatting where you get thousands of viewers. But I think there's potential for it's to grow, and also is a good way to promote games. And it's also nice because it's like kind of a way to engage with fans and talk to them, and they can have like an influence on your game because like if I work on my game live, people can watch and then be like, hey, you should try this or you should try this. And then sometimes those ideas are pretty good, so it's like, yeah, I will try that. And then, yeah, it's kind of a interesting way to like get feedback on your game as you're working, and also to like talk to fans as you work on the game also. And something like this, where I'm working on art, it doesn't take any like um, what the like language processing part of my brain, so I can talk while I do it. So I just like to, interview people and talk about things while I do it. Um, yeah, and then why did I get into games was I guess it was just I played a lot of games growing up, and then I got into a bunch of random things like art and music, and then I was like, I want to try making a game, and that was the only thing that clicked for me. So I just went with it, and I studied software development, and I did that full time while I made games on the side until I could go self-employed. And this is just the only thing I've done that I actually, I guess, liked doing full time, and that stuck with me. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Thanks. Yeah.
Any what are your top three games, if I may ask?
Uh, Probably short hike. Let's see. I like this a lot. It's like small. It's a very small, like, I don't know, cute game. It's just like great art and like really interesting sound design and just cool level design in the way it's very open, but like has a very cool progression of like you're just trying to climb a mountain. Um,
Yeah,
Maybe Resident Evil 2 remake. That was the only Resident Evil I played, but I really liked the survival horror design of it. And
yeah.
I don't know, a third, maybe StarCraft. Like the old RTS. Yeah. What about you? What's your three?
Oh, that's a good one. Um, hmm. So I like that you're a more old school type player.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't really mentioned Fortnite and Warzone and the like.
I haven't played
Always
those.
a sign of good taste. Um, so I'm really enjoying Hitman 47,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just before Hitman got properly complicated and too much was going on, and just
Mm-hmm.
after the blocky Hitmans of the past. And I like how just one step behind a guard can
Mm-hmm.
be the difference between getting arrested and shot versus getting to your target. It has a lot of really tiny gems that reward a heist focused mind like mine. So I really like Hitman. Um, Burnout when I was growing up was a really fantastic game. Um, I miss the heyday of racing games. I have not found any interesting racing games in a long time. By
Mm-hmm.
extension, of course, Most Wanted, Need for Speed. And then Scarface
Oh yeah.
was wildly ahead of its time. Um, and it was a bit repetitive, a bit simple, but the characterization was so heavy and so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like the character actually lived through the game versus most, let me say, AAA games, especially by studios like Ubisoft, even though they are our benefactor and they've given us a grant, sometimes tend to be a bit formulaic. But I
Mm-hmm.
found Scarface to have really strong characters, a lot of really good freedom, one of the best early um, open world games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is. I once talked to somebody who found, yeah, this guy. He found a dev build of Scarface for the Xbox. I wonder if I can
Oh,
find it.
wow.
Yeah, it was like a old like alpha that still had like all the debug stuff on it. I don't know where. Oh, here it is. Yeah,
Oh,
I
wow.
haven't
That's awesome.
I haven't played it, but I haven't played Scarface, but this is like one of
you,
the areas I know. Yeah, behind the
yeah,
scenes. Hmm?
it, in retrospect, I think I might have been clouded by youth. Um, yeah, it might not be that good anymore, but I still remember like so many interesting gameplay elements
Mm-hmm.
and how the HUD design, quote unquote, the enemy design was always very interesting. And I think it's one of the proper good sleeper games,
Mm-hmm.
especially of that. Right now, not so much.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of like really interesting games that just don't get picked up when they're out or when they're first out, but then over the years, like I think Deus Ex is one of those that I've heard about. I haven't played it, but everyone always talks about it. Um, if you, it sounds like you're into sims though, or immersive sims, and you might want to. Have you heard of Cruelty Squad? That's a pretty weird one.
Sorry, say that again.
Yeah, it's pretty weird, but it sounds
Mm-hmm.
like something you'd be into.
Yeah, sure. I think I'll send you an email just to get it from you.
All right.
Um, Let me ask, what three games would you not wish on your worst enemy to play?
Oh, I mean, there's bad games, but then I feel like the most frustrating games are the ones that are good, but
Mhm.
they have like some serious flaws on top, so it just gets really frustrating to play because you're like you can see how it would be good if it just they just fix
Yeah,
this one thing and then it just becomes like the most like
yeah,
rage inducing thing to play.
yeah.
Um, so I mean like that would be probably They Are Billions, which is like this really great RTS game, except there's some
Mm-hmm.
like really annoying design flaws in it that just make it like super frustrating sometimes. Um, I don't know if I'd wish that on my worst enemy. It's like something I'd have to think about. Like, you know, it's like I don't play bad games, so it's like I don't know. If a game's bad, I just stop playing. So I'm like
Yeah.
I can't think of any. I don't know. Do you have any worst games you would wish on someone?
Uh, I think similar to you, I don't really do bad games. Um, but I'd say just an overall games that don't give you a strong reason to play early on.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, I especially remember The Division. I tried playing it like a
Oh
few
yeah.
weeks back. Yeah, the first one. And I like certain Ubisoft games like Far Cry 3, of course. A few of the Assassin's Creed are fairly interesting, but the Division, I started playing it and 5 minutes in, I asked myself, why am I playing again? Like, there's no reason at all. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
There's. I think worse
I've
than bad
developed
is
great
just boring.
intelligence.
Oh, sorry. What?
No, no, continue.
Worse than bad is just boring. I feel like because if it's bad, then at least it's interesting.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you on the could have been so much more.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you see a game has almost everything else right. Especially for me, that's the most frustrating part. Almost everything else right, except something like story.
Mm-hmm.
And like the graphics are amazing, the mechanics are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the whole design is really good, but there's no strong reason for you to play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that really grinds my gears.
Yeah, and it's just like could have. Yeah, when you
Yeah,
see the potential, I see that a lot with AAA games where they put all this amazing work into everything and like make this gorgeous, amazing soundtrack, sound design, visuals, and then they just put
yeah,
like the most like designed by a marketing team kind of game together,
yeah.
and it's just like why? Could have done so much.
And it's funny. I make a living as a marketer, but
Mm-hmm.
so many times I tell the team, do not let too much marketing seep into the game.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I remember that conversation started with Apex Legends, where within the game they have Apex banners. Um, And of course, yes, it's part of the world and you're actually supposed to be playing a tournament.
Hmm.
But it struck me as fairly disingenuous. It might slightly bring a player out of the immersion of the game by
Hmm.
realizing that they are actually playing Apex, by seeing Apex Legends
Oh
banners
yeah.
hanging at the tournament. Um, yeah, so yes, I agree with you. Marketing should have very limited input into games.
So you've marketed for games also as part of
I've
your job?
marketed a few games in the past, yes.
What's like your process for marketing games? That's like I think the number one thing everyone complains about is like the most hard part of making games.
Ooh, I think for me, so I didn't think I'd speak about marketing, but here we go. I think the first step is just understanding the overall principles of marketing, and there are four key ones. Um, there's placement. This is usually where people place their advertising or their marketing. So it might be billboard, social media, etc. There's promotions. Sorry. Placement is where you place the product. So it might be Steam, might be Epic, it might be hard copies and so on.
Hmm.
There's promotions. Promotions is where you do the actual advertising, so digital billboards, etc. There is price, so how much your product is.
Hmm.
There's people that is sometimes it's a newer addition, a bit here or there. Sometimes you might not think about it too much. Sometimes you might really focus on it. So, like, who are the people who will engage with your product?
Hmm.
And then I think the most important one by far is product.
Yeah.
And what that means is that before you make your game, figure out what type of game you want it to be eventually. And I believe the best marketing really elevates sometimes a mediocre product, sometimes a great product, but very rarely a bad product.
Hmm.
Like crazy difficult to sell a bad product. Like we've seen all these, especially mobile games, spend millions of dollars in advertising
Hmm.
and no one cares. No one gives a fuck. No one like you couldn't pay them to play.
Yeah. I've always been like,
I think
do
product
people
is
actually play
everything.
these? Like when I see a lot of those.
And some of them are a bit addictive,
Hmm.
but you cannot, I believe, no sane player can put in, let's say, even hundreds of hours or dozens of hours, which is what you want as a developer. You
Hmm.
want someone to play the game repeatedly.
Hmm.
And then speaking to mobile devs especially, you sort of understand where the challenge is. Because they also Flappy Bird come out and make $50,000 a day for like, I don't know, 3 months.
Hmm.
And everyone wanted to make a Flappy Bird type of game.
Yeah.
So there's no character, there's no style, there's no depth to it. It's just easy to click, and then you game analytics, you game um, the ASO of the platform. You try to get as many people to see it through ads. And
Hmm.
then you're always in this cycle of you have to bring new players in.
Yeah.
So,
And
and even to dive a bit deeper,
hmm.
majority of the player strategy for mobile games is a roughly a 7 day cycle. Like they do not expect this player to be playing this game after 7 days.
Oh damn.
Like,
Uh-huh.
say, yeah, I know. So you can imagine you have like maybe 5 plays out of each player, and you have to maximize the number of ads they see. You have to maximize trying to get them to pay money. Like it's
Hmm.
a really unhealthy game development experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's rough. And where do you put ads? Is it just on like, you know, on the Play Store or whatever on iOS or
You mean putting ads into the game?
like or no
Or
for advertising the game? Where do you put your ads?
okay. So it's interesting you mentioned that. You're really taking me down a rabbit hole here, but it's okay. It's an
No, it's
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah. So I think it's important to first of all mention that majority of the money that's made through ads, let's say you make a game, let's say you call it uh, Stream Prosper, for example. It's
Mm-hmm.
this game about running down a stream. Um, Majority of the ads that I would see as a player when playing your game would be of other games.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this
Oh. Uh-huh.
cannibalization, so to say, that your competition is your best customer.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and there's an interesting stat, I think by, was it Unity or App Annie, that talked about 70% of all revenue that is generated from ads is from other games.
Uh-huh.
So it's,
Wow.
yeah, it creates this crazy cycle that for games to be profitable, other games have to be bad and try to get players.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's really step one. Now I can try to answer the platform question. So there are a lot of ad selling platforms. Unity has their own Unity ads. Google has their own. Facebook has their own. I think
Mm-hmm.
Twitter has one. And a few dozen others that are not as prominent, where you can edit a video. You can go on Fiverr, upload some footage, get someone to make a few ads for you,
Mm-hmm.
then go onto Google Ads and um, deliver your ad to their ad network. So it's a fairly, let me say, fairly simplified process. You just really need a video
Mm-hmm.
and a link to your app. Yeah.
With these like studios making mobile games, what's like the how long does it take to make a game? Like what's the dev cycle?
A few hours.
To make a game? A few hours?
Yeah.
What? How?
Yeah, a few hours. I mean, if you really think about it, it's not a deep, world shaking,
Yeah.
emotion grabbing experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the key, it's factory style.
Mm-hmm.
You're making something to ship out because the most important thing about mobile games is testing them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about making the game.
Yeah.
So you make a game as quickly as you can. Um, and especially with Unity templates, you can make a game in mere hours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ship it to in fact, the longest part might be waiting for Apple, especially to approve your game. That's the most draining part, but everything else is fairly easy. Yeah, then you ship it and you try to get players into it, which is why the marketing costs for mobile games are so ridiculous. I think whatever the production budget, it costs roughly 10 times in marketing to get your money back.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so if you spend, let's say, let's say you are really focused on trying to go deep into making a great game. If you spend $100,000 making the game, you may need to spend about $1 million marketing it.
Damn.
Yeah.
Wow. Is that what you're doing for your game? Spending a
No, 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 no. So we are working on a console game.
Mm-hmm.
That's our main title. Hero that I mentioned is a
Mm-hmm.
console game. Um, so that's a much longer cycle.
Yeah.
Um, we are working on a mobile title, but with a lot more character, a lot more work put into it. And we believe that some of that will be our main differentiator. And then being a marketer, I've been able to um, figure out new, unique, interesting ways of getting players to be interested in our game. And I don't care about the 7 day cycle. I'm thinking about a 7 month cycle. So I don't want a player who will only play the
Mm-hmm.
game 3, 4 times.
Yeah.
I'm thinking 300, 400 times.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
then for that, you don't have to put 10 times as much in marketing.
Yes, especially if it works, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And the beauty about how we are thinking about our mobile game is that it's perfectly okay if it's a sleeper title, if it takes time to pick up.
Yeah.
That's perfectly okay with us.
Um, let's see. Also, are there any like, I don't know, government grants for like art or something? Because I know I have some friends in Europe who get like where they are. There's like government grants for like game studios because there's like art programs or something. They support. I don't know. Yeah, small artists and stuff like that, or even bigger art things. Is there anything like that, or are there any like government or even like startup programs or something that provide funding?
Um, Long story short, no. Um, just recently, the government finally agreed to assist in financing films and music. So it might be a minute before they get into games.
Mm-hmm.
So long story short, no, there isn't really any funding, especially from government. There are a few interesting models around NGOs talking about interactive entertainment, trying to do serious games that communicate
Mm-hmm.
social struggles, social opportunities, and so on, but nothing governmental, no.
Mm-hmm. All right,
Yeah.
let's see. What I guess yeah. What are like the advantages and disadvantages of being a game developer there?
Um, I'd say, let me start with the disadvantages. Um, all the problems that a Western or European game developer will have, even by extension Asian,
Mm-hmm.
just do a 10x on them. So any challenge that you might think of, whether it's financing, whether it's equipment, whether it's skill, whatever the challenge, you just 10x it. So that should just bring all the disadvantages together into one
Hmm.
very neat little package.
Uh huh.
Um, Advantages. Most studios believe there are no advantages. I think for us, especially myself having experience in film and other industries, even experience in technology, like I work in the fintech industry, I've advised a lot of startups in other industries, etc.
Mm-hmm.
It's understanding the opportunity. There's barely any competition, especially on the continent.
Mm-hmm.
There's barely any significant players who you can say have huge market share. Maybe the African studio with the largest market share probably has hit about 1%
Mm-hmm.
of potential market share. So there's a lot of opportunity. Um, there's no monopolies. And the only challenge, of course, is that we have a lot of foreign games on the continent that players are playing. So it
Mm-hmm.
is a bit higher barrier to entry. But then people, I think, really connect with stories that are both unique and familiar to them.
Mm-hmm.
So unique might not be familiar. Let's say, for example, you probably watched Narcos or Squid Game or
Oh
La
yeah.
Casa de Papel
Mm-hmm.
or so many of these interesting shows that are not any way familiar to you.
Mm-hmm.
On it. But because of that, because of their uniqueness, you gave them a shot and you found it to be a very
Mm-hmm.
interesting experience in comparison to what you might have been watching previously.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing that we bank on is that uniqueness is a strength. And then the second one is familiarity, that if you have, let's say, if all your life never seen a game that was familiar to you, familiar to your experience, familiar to how you live, how you work, how you communicate with your friends, um, about your history, about your future, about your time going to school, about
Mm-hmm.
rainy mornings in Wellington boots and so on. When you finally do see one, you'd be able to connect with it at a much deeper level than almost every other game, no matter the quality.
Mm-hmm.
And even better if it has a fairly good quality about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh yeah. What do you do for like? I guess how many languages do you plan to support on your game? Are you like just doing one, or are you supporting like multiple localization? Like, what's your plan for that?
For languages, we're just going to start off with English,
Mm-hmm.
and then stretch the localization into, sorry, stretch the localization into Spanish, Mandarin, Portuguese, and German.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You.
we are thinking about French. We've seen a lot of overlap between French and English. Um, yeah, so that's the only one that we are still iffy about.
Mm-hmm.
But what's exciting is that almost everywhere, almost everyone I speak to from different regions has a fairly comfortable understanding of English,
Mm-hmm.
and that English is becoming this new proper universal language across the world.
Mm-hmm.
In Germany, in China, in Brazil, in Spain, it's becoming a fairly strong language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I that's good for me since I only speak English. So whenever I go anywhere, it's like, hey,
Yeah, yeah.
what are the local languages where you are? What's like, I don't know. Is it English the main spoken, or French, or what's?
So Swahili is the main language. It's actually the most spoken language in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
I am also native to it. I grew up speaking in Swahili. Um, then, so it in order is Swahili, then I believe Arabic, because we have a very strong North Africa area. After Arabic, it's a tie between English and French. But then when you speak about the economically active population, majority of it is English.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. I think I went through all my questions. Let's see. Do any viewers have questions you'd like to ask? And also, is there anything else you would like to talk about?
Mm, I think I have one. Okay, always have a few, but I have one, I think an interesting one for you. What's the weirdest audience interaction you've had so far? Doesn't have to be bad, doesn't have to be good, just was weird or
Um,
unique.
I saw a negative review of my game. Somebody made a video. It was a good review. It was very constructive and all that. But there was a comment. There was a comment on the video that just said, "I always knew he was a mediocre developer with an inflated ego. I'm happy to see I was proven right." I think
Oh
that's
wow.
it's like
Oh wow.
it's just an insult.
Yeah, I mean that's so I think it has so many layers to it.
Yeah.
You have to seriously think about it. Like you can't just dismiss. You're like, oh wow, you actively researched this. You actively went out and looked for something to justify your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, someone asked, Gato Sardo asks, why the transition from film to games? You think the media overlap?
Oh, that's a good one. Um, Making movies is so hard, and I know that's rich. Talking about games, games are by far the most complicated technically. But what you find with, okay, what I've found with movies is that they have certain really significant failure points that it's so difficult to make great movies.
Mm-hmm.
Let me say, for example, Subway Surfer, yeah, fairly repetitive, fairly formulaic, but
Mm-hmm.
became the most downloaded game ever pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So by extension, it can be easily considered one of the biggest games ever. It was the first to hit 1 billion downloads, etc. Very tiny team. I think it was under 100 people at the most. In comparison to the biggest movie, this will probably be um, Avengers Endgame
Yeah.
and or Avatar, and these are like 10,000 people plus. So just comparing that should at least I think, give a bit of a picture of the complication with making good movies. And I didn't really believe that it was possible to do it sustainably, repeatedly. Um, yeah. And then I found you always need a change of scenery every so often. It's so easy to be stuck doing the same thing for 10 years and
Mm-hmm.
not really even being able to challenge yourself or doing something exciting because you've gone through that cycle. Um, but then it was also an exciting opportunity to do something that uh, most people will not even know where to start. So that made it, I think, super exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But in a nutshell, to bring it all together, I've always wanted to make games. I've always loved making games. I've always loved thinking about games and playing games. I got the perfect opportunity. Very grateful for that. I know a lot of my peers who haven't been as fortunate. And then I think games, especially, are much more, uh, what's the word? Powerful than they get credit for. And slowly we are seeing it creep into the consciousness that game developers are no longer considered geeks. Players are no longer considered weirdos who are shut in their basements. It's now considered a
Mm-hmm.
serious career, serious opportunity, a lot of real world application. Streamers are becoming super famous and culture icons. So it's this
Mm-hmm.
exciting revolution in games, and I'm excited to see it take a bit of the shine away from movies. And filmmakers
Yeah.
sometimes are too, as a past stroke current filmmaker, filmmakers are too what's the word? Self-serving. Like it's really bad. Like there's a lot of ego in that side of the industry. And I still
Mm-hmm.
have filmmaker friends, and I'm like, hey guys, come on. It's not. Yeah, your your sh- your 3 minute short film did not solve world hunger. Come on, relax. Like it's not. It's powerful. It's amazing. You made someone
Yeah.
cry, but come on. Yeah, let's not let's not stretch what this is. So yeah, there was also just dealing a bit with that phoniness and saying, it's not exactly what I'd like to do forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a long answer, but I hope it helped.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, he said, thanks for the answer. Uh, Kanikla asks, are there any game schools or colleges in Kenya? Are they worth it?
Oh, good one. Good to Pata. Yes, there's one. Is it worth it? So I know some of the lecturers there, so I have to be careful, but I can be fairly fair and say it is because it's so short and so specific. I think it's very valuable. I think it becomes a challenge when you spend, let's say, 4 years studying information that was created 10 years ago. I
Hmm.
think that's where a big challenge comes in. But when it's a shorter course, maybe a diploma, maybe a certificate, it's fairly easier to get recent information, high quality information, and then there's pressure on you to actually learn because
Mm-hmm.
you have such a short amount of time and you have to be out in the world fairly quickly. You also go to YouTube and teach yourself and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, there is just one started recently. There's another one in South Africa that has a bachelor's program and a master's program, which are both super exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so yes, there is education. Is it any good? It's fairly good and improving, I think, every year.
Cool. Oh, yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna ask, what games are popular there? What do people mostly play?
So I'd say it's fairly similar to most other, let me say, gamer communities. They're the guys who do the sport games, the FIFAs and the NBAs and the Maddens and so on. That almost always tends to be a large section of the gamer population. Then there are the indie guys who are generally almost always game devs or like deep anime fans.
Uh huh.
I mean, it's true. We all know it's true. It's true. It's okay. I love anime too, so it's okay. Um, so yeah, so there's those two really specific communities. There's of course mobile players, especially ladies who love Candy Crush that exists. I think my mom plays Candy Crush. I'm not sure. I think. Um, yeah, so I'd say it's fairly similar to almost every other gamer community around the world, especially America. It's very similar to North America, where there are sports players, there are your indie stroke anime type players, there's your mobile players. Yeah, so it's fairly similar, not too many surprises.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, I guess that's everything for me. And I don't know if anyone in chat has anything else. Do you have anything else you want to say?
This was awesome. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, this was fun.
A lot of fun.
Thanks for coming on. Yeah, good luck with Hero. Was it? I will
Yeah,
put the
hero.
link to the game again. Well, it's the link tree, so be sure to check that out, everyone, and follow on Twitter. And yeah, cool. All right. Have.
Okay, awesome.
Oh yeah, what time is it there, by the way? I forgot to ask the time zone.
It's 10 p.m.
Oh dang,
Yeah.
that's a
And
lot
yours?
later. Right now it's 2 p.m. right now.
Ah, okay. So slow afternoon.
Yeah, yeah, pretty early afternoon. All right, have a good night. I guess. See ya.
Okay, have a good night. And yeah, wish you the best also with the stream. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Good night, everyone. Say hi to your families. Tell them you love them.
It's a good idea. Yeah, I'm gonna do
Yes, always a good idea.
that. All right. See ya.
Okay. Yes.
Night. All right, that was fun. Thanks for the questions. Loving the interviews. Thank you, Gata. These are fun to do. I like doing these. Um, all right, I have like a million things to do, so I'm gonna end the stream now. But thanks everyone for joining, and we'll go raid. Let's raid 2 star. Yeah, I haven't raided him before, but I'm sure you all know. Wait, is he still? Yeah, he's still alive. Okay, just wait. Why am I? Oh, because I'm on Chrome, right? Usually I get ad block on. Okay, we'll wait for this ad to disappear, and then whatever. I'll just raid. I'm sure you all know who this is from the famous TikToks and stuff. And yeah, we'll drop the raid, and I'll see you next time. Next week, I think I have an interview lined up. Yeah, we'll see. It'll be cool.